World powers are urging Israel and the Lebanese Hezbollah group to de-escalate tensions at the border after the Hezbollah group launched hundreds of large-scale rocket and drones towards Israel. Now, this comes right after the Israeli military launched preemptive strikes in Lebanon after detecting preparations for large-scale attacks by Hezbollah. Amid the exchange of fire at the Israeli-Lebanon border, Lebanese caretaker Prime Minister Najib Mikati said that the government is making efforts to stop the escalation. The Prime Minister made the statement after a ministerial meeting which took place to follow up on the developments in the south of the country. Meanwhile, Israeli forces have released a video showing its targeted strikes on Hezbollah's military posts across southern Lebanon. The Lebanese group, on the other hand, says 2 of its operatives have been killed in Israeli fire. Hezbollah says its attack is an initial response to a top commander's killing, Fuad Shukr. The Lebanese group has said it began an air attack with a large number of drones targeting areas deep into Israel. Hezbollah fighters have also targeted enemy positions and barracks and Iron Dome platforms with rockets. It fired more than 320 Katyusha rockets targeting 11 military bases in northern Israel. Hezbollah says it targeted Israel's surveillance, Meron base and 4 sites in the Golan Heights. Israel says it hit thousands of Hezbollah rocket launchers. Now, in Lebanon's capital, many travelers are stranded at the Beirut airport after the cross-border fire between the Israeli forces and Hezbollah. Air France has also cancelled its flights to Tel Aviv and Beirut till Monday.
أنا بدي شيء أطلع من هون بكل وسائل، يعني جربت أطلع بالبر، جربت بدي حيلا طيران، حيلا شيء بدي أطلع من هون تروح دبر حالي، يمكن ما لاقي بدي أقعد جمعة ما بعرف قد إيه بدي أقعد بالأردن بس مهم أطلع من هون.
Israeli Defense Minister Yoav Gallant has declared a 48-hour state of emergency across the country. Gallant also briefed his U.S. counterpart on the strikes, saying they are closely monitoring the developments. U.S. President Joe Biden has directed U.S. officials to continuously communicate with Israel, and national security spokesperson who has reassured that U.S. will keep supporting Israel's right to defend itself. The Israeli military has said its fighter jets attacked thousands of Hezbollah rocket launchers in southern Lebanon that were aimed at northern and central Israel. Israeli Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu has vowed that he is determined to do everything to protect the country and return the residents of the northern Israel region to their homes.
אנחנו נחושים לעשות הכל כדי להגן על המדינה שלנו, להחזיר את תושבי הצפון בבטחה לבתיהם, ולהמשיך לקיים כלל פשוט. מי שפוגע בנו, אנחנו פוגעים בו.
Cross-border attacks by Hezbollah and Israel have escalated dramatically in the past couple of months. On the 18th of June, to quickly remind you, Hezbollah had published a video from one of its reconnaissance drones which entered Israel. It was flying over northern Israel, including the Haifa port. And this video appeared to put out a message to Israel that Hezbollah knows the exact locations of the strategic locations inside Israel and has access to most of its security installations. Then again in July, Hezbollah had published an almost 10-minute long video showing footage of 17 military sites in the Israeli-occupied Syrian Golan Heights. The video showed Israeli Iron Dome batteries, command centers and ammo depots. These recent warnings indicate that Hezbollah had been bracing for a wide-scale attack against Israel for quite some time. All right, to discuss this further, Ambassador Anil Trigunath is joining us. He's a distinguished fellow, WIF, and has served in Indian missions across several nations. Thank you so much for joining us on the broadcast. He's also served as Director General, Joint Secretary for the Gulf and Hajj divisions in the Ministry of External Affairs in India, joining us from New Delhi. Pleasure to have you here with me, Mr. Trigunath. Now, sir, the tensions peaked between the two sides, but within hours of the attacks, Hezbollah said its military operation had finished for the day and Israel reopened Ben Gurion International Airport near Tel Aviv. Do you feel that a larger war has been averted to a certain degree at this point?
No, I don't think so. In fact, we'll continue to see these spurts off and on because the fundamental issue, which is the current ongoing Hamas war, the killing of the senior leaders by the IDF, and the problems that are continuing in the region are the basic issues that if they are not addressed, it will be very difficult to somehow do that. I think that this is also, apart from conveying a message that it was a revenge by them for Fuad Shuk's killing or Ismail Haniyeh's killing, but it is also in order to continue to maintain the pressure on the international community with regard to the ceasefire talks that are going on in Cairo simultaneously, and in which it appears that again it's going to be rather elusive. So I think that these are all tactics that are being deployed by both sides. Israel started this morning, as you know, at 5 o'clock, 100 fighter jets went in a preemptive strike and bombed various southern Lebanon positions of Hezbollah and others. And then Hezbollah reacted, which is going to do. It's also a strong army or a force with which currently the whole world is worried that this escalation can go anyway. So this is something that I think that people have to believe. But I think for the time being, it may have died down for a day or two. But once again, we'll continue to see. We have seen it in the past 10 months that all the three H's, Hezbollah, Hamas, and Houthis, have continued to operate. Earlier, it was a low-key, but with the killing of their own leaders, I think that they have come in the open. And of course, Iran currently is having this strategic patience or silence for the time being, but has all its 3 or 4 H, as they call the Hezbollah, Hamas, and Houthis proxies take action on its behalf, which is also continuing to maintain pressure on Israel.
So tensions remain on the boil, Ambassador, as you mentioned, and you also mentioned the ceasefire deal, which is still ongoing in Cairo. It's progressing as planned. Now, in spite of the high-intensity strikes and preemptive strikes, the ceasefire talks are still being held in Cairo as planned. Now, with the US pressing Israel to show support for the talks. So what are the prospects of ceasefire talks at this point? You also mentioned that Hezbollah is perhaps trying to maintain pressure as the talks are scheduled to take place. Give us a better understanding of how you are seeing these ceasefire talks emerging from here.
Well, unfortunately, in these ceasefire talks, what we have seen is even though the US has tried its best, I would say, to a great extent, trying to have some kind of a ceasefire and return of the hostages, the fact it has not been able to put adequate pressure on Israel, which has continued to change the goalposts, or for that matter, its allies like Egypt and Qatar on the Hamas leadership, to essentially come to the table and agree to the thing that they have already agreed to. In fact, this deal, which has been agreed by both sides, had been put, but then they continue to change the goalposts. So that's the problem. Today, now there is a problem that Israel wants to maintain its presence at the Philadelphia corridor in order to maintain its vigilance and control. On the other hand, it says that the second option is that you create 8 watchtowers and which should be manned by that. So this is a very major issue that I don't see that either Hamas or Israel are prepared or are genuinely ready for the ceasefire. They'll continue to find fault with one another because they will continue to change the goalposts. And therefore, this kind of a situation is very unlikely to be resolved overnight. But I hope that good sense prevails and some kind of a ceasefire for those poor hostages is reached.
Ambassador, at this point, the fact that the ceasefire talks are still progressing as planned, that is at least a ray of hope. But as you are understanding the matter, you're not expecting this to get resolved within a day. But of course, the fact that the ceasefire talks are happening means that there are steps being taken in that direction. Thank you so much for joining us. That was Ambassador Anil Trigunath joining us from New Delhi, sharing all his insights.
Thank you, sir.